Okay, fellow teachers, now we're going to have a look at the maths component of this wonderful resource, Sunshine Online. It's a lot similar in the navigation as the literacy aspect of it. So you start off at this page. This is the page after you've logged in. Alright, so we might just go for the early levels with the learning space. And as you can see, you've got your literacy, as we saw earlier, but you've also got the maths. Now, as we did before, just follow my mouse and my hand, and this is the way we go. Okay, so let's click into maths and see what they have to offer us. Again, just as it was with the literacy, you will be choosing whatever activity suits your learning intention or your learning goal. So depending on what VEL's progression point you're focusing on will depend on what you choose here. You might use some of the smaller levels for the older for the higher progression points, but it's all up to your own transgression. Okay, so let's just pick an activity and we'll see what. Let's check counting cars.
The title of this story is Counting Cars.
So as you can see, it also has the audio, just as the literacy did, which makes it a great tool for your whole class focus, but also for your independent learning, whether it be in your numeracy lesson or even as a free time game, because it's very entertaining. So we'll click through this one and we'll see what they've got to offer us. There's actually a lot of literacy throughout this as well. So that's the best thing. It's an integrated sort of online resource where you've got literacy and numeracy at the same time for this one. So let's have a quick look.
The children looked out as the cars went by. More cars are white, said Conrad to Sky.
As you can see, it's rhyming, and there are lots of literacy points you could use in your maths lesson just to incorporate it as well. Just as the literacy was, when it's read is when it's talking. So if the kids are listening to it, they can then follow it along and become a bit more familiar with some other words. I didn't mention before, but these are our navigation buttons, next and back. They explain. It's quite obvious, really. So next, we'll keep going through. We might not listen to the whole thing, but you'll be able to see the idea that they have. It's interactive, it's colourful, and it has audio and visual.
No, they are not, said Sky. Take a look, while I make a graph on the lines in my book.
So obviously this lesson is all about making graphs, and as you'll see in a minute, it's got activities that follow it that the class could either do as a whole or even better as an independent activity. So this would be your whole class focus, and then you'd send them off to do their work.
I'll call out the colours as the cars go by, and you mark the graph, said Conrad to Sky. 3 blue cars, 1 pink, 2 yellow, 1 brown, 3 white, and 2 red. Are you marking them down?
That's some great rhyming right there.
2 more white cars, 1 blue and 1 white. Then Sky called out, "Stop! Look at my graph. I am up to the top. The graph shows more white cars went by us today." "I was right, I was right," Conrad said. "Hip hooray."
Well done.
Okay.
Now you can read the story yourself.
So as you can see, it's a good whole part class activity. So we'll just have a click and see what the activities they have to offer. The directional buttons are quite easy to learn. Activities takes you to the activities menu, which I'll show you now. Home takes you all the way back to near the login, and quit takes you back to pick another, like a different game. So we'll click on activities first and we'll have a look at one of those and see what the focus is. We'll click on activity 1, so you could choose 1, 2 or a game. The game isn't actually linked to the learning focus, so it'll be a quick tune-in game that you might use just to get them engaged at the start. So we'll click on number 1.
Make a graph of the different coloured cars. What colour is the car? Click on the correct square on the graph, like this. Now it's your turn. What colour is the car? Click on the correct square on the graph.
As you can see, it's very, very well instructed. So children can read along, but they can also just listen and get the gist of it. So like these sorts of activities are great for your younger class, and that's for sure, but they can also work well with your older students.
What colour is the car? Click on the correct square on the graph. What colour is the car? Click on the correct square on the graph.
Okay, so you get the idea of this activity and this part of the resource. It's obviously how to make pictographs, so it would be your probably grade 1 or 2, depending on which Vels progression point you were linking this to. So once we're into an activity, we could click back onto the story.
The title of this story is Counting Cars.
So you might do it again at the end as in the reflection or share time. So I'm just going to click quit so you can see where it takes us. It takes us back to here, so then you can choose literacy or maths, whatever you'd like. So as you can see, it's a great little resource and links in well with your Vels progression points, depending on your learning outcome or lesson intention. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope this helps you with this resource. Okay, welcome to Sunshine Online. So we've gone through the process of logging in. I'm not giving you my login details, obviously, that would be silly. So this is the literacy section of the website. Today what we might do is choose the middle, early years levels. These are obviously the levels, as you can see, where the fingers are pointing of what readers they're up to. Okay, now with this process you'll be following the pointer, and following wherever my mouse goes is where you need to go to actually navigate through this. So let's start off our learning by clicking on number 2, so early levels 6 to 15, levels 6 to 15. Let's have a look. Okay, so with this it's also got the math section there. You've got your 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and as you can see, and so on. So depending on what your lesson focus is, or what you're trying to put through as your learning intention, would be what level you use. You can use the lower levels even with some of the higher reader lessons. Depends on what your focus is really and what you want to get out of it, and what stories that your students really like, what will engage them. Okay, so we've clicked on levels 9, 10 and 11. So these are all of your books. These ones have activities, this one doesn't. The NF, as you've probably already guessed it because you're a smart teacher, is non-fiction. Okay, so depending on your focus you might use a non-fiction book. What we might click on today is the Lucky Grub. We'll try this one. Obviously what you do is when you're planning your lesson, depending on your Vels intention or your Vels level, would be on what level that you pick.
The title of this story is The Lucky
in saying
Grub.
that, yes, like I said, you can use
Read
it for
the
any
words,
level depending
then
on what
click
you're
on
wanting to
Next.
do. So, the Lucky Grub. Okay. Now, quite easy to follow. Back, next. Okay, so not too hard. So you might have your students on this page do a bit of predicting. Okay, one of their comprehension strategies or reading strategies would be the Lucky Grub. What is it about, boys and girls? Let's have a guess, and then we'll see how we go from there. If you wanted to click straight to your activities, you could click down here. But let's go through one of the stories anyway, the Lucky Grub.
I am a lucky grub, said the grub. I am very lucky indeed.
So when it goes red, that is when it is actually talking. Okay, so let's just say that your learning intention for this might be students will know to pause on a comma and to stop at a full stop when they're reading. Okay, so you might actually have the student pick a student to read all of this, and then to test if they've done it right, you'd then put the audio on. So your student might say, I am a lucky grub, pause, said the grub, full stop, I am very lucky indeed. Then go through, the audio will play it. The voices used are quite good, they're very animated, and they really do a good job of their reading. So you'd flick through, picking different students to read for you. You might not use the audio, you might model it yourself, which I find is very good as well. But the audio is very handy in saying if a younger student is working independently in one of their reading groups, they can then learn by themselves. You don't have to be there to regulate it. They're their own boss.
My house is an apple that is ripe
So you
and
click through,
hangs
read your
at
story.
night. The wind gently rocks,
You know,
and
there's
if
lots
I
of
wake
lots
up
of
and
bright
get
colours
hungry,
in most of the stories, and most of them are also interactive and move.
I can nibble the walls of my...
Well
Lucky
done.
grub.
Now you
So it goes
can
back
read
to the start
story
page. So
yourself.
here,
For
if you
help,
use this for your
click
whole
on a
focus, you
word.
might not use the activities. But if you set this up as an independent learning intention or learning task, you might tell them you want them to do the activities. Now the activities usually have something to do with letter and spelling, and also a comprehension activity, okay, or a writing activity. So let's click on one now, Word Slurper. Let's have a look. And the other good thing is that the loading time is really quite quick on these, okay.
Choo!
So very animated. So it's up to the students now to just recreate the picture, okay. So you can move it along. You can do this on your interactive whiteboard, so they can actually have some hands-on learning. You might click that there, okay. So it's quite straightforward. Now to get back to the story, yep, you guessed it, you click onto story. Now to get back to your levels again, it's quite simple. You hit quick and it brings you back here. It doesn't take you all the way to the back, all the way back to the learning space 1, 2 and 3 again. So you might then choose a different story, okay. Now with linking it to VELS, okay, it's quite straightforward. VELS tells you exactly what your level should be doing, or what they should almost be doing, or where they need to go to move forward onto the next progression point. You'd then customize your lesson towards using this appropriately, okay. So there's no real set. You could definitely not say this is only for VELS level 3 or level 4, because they could be used in any level, okay. Obviously depending on what if you may be in the learning space 3, okay, for your fluent readers, you might not use one of those stories because they are more of a novel type story and they're quite long, okay, which it could be used in their independent reading quite well. Okay, so that is the navigation basically of the literacy part of it, which is as you can see is really quite easy. Home takes you home. It's a really good way to navigate through this, okay, so I definitely recommend it for anybody. Next we'll be doing a little bit of learning on how to navigate through the maths part, which is very similar. So we'll move to that now. Thank you for listening, and I hope you use this online resource well, because coming from experience of using it, it really engages the kids, and I think it's perfect for a whole focus, and even better for independent learning, because it has all of the scaffolding needed through the audio as well. Okay, thank you.